and welcome to the Wagtail podcast. Today I have Claire with me. Hi, Claire.
Hi.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my name's Claire and I'm training to be a coach. Really interested in using positivity to kind of overcome life's hurdles, if you like. And my background is in filmmaking. So I've had the real privilege to work with some amazing people. I've worked within end-of-life care and dementia, and I've interviewed limbless veterans. I've spent some time in Uganda working for a baby rescue centre, and also worked with a charity that was helping internally displaced people as well. So I've had the experience, I guess, of just talking to people with so much wisdom, I guess, of what they've been through and how they've overcome it, and people that don't realise how extraordinary they are. They're just kind of getting on with life, and you're like, no, wait a minute, like that is incredible. Your outlook on that is amazing, and thank you for sharing that with me. So I've had all these conversations with people that have meant so much to me and have hopefully meant so much to them as well, because they've been given that platform to talk about something that really matters to them. So that's part of my journey to coaching. But the other part is I've had a serious illness a couple of times, didn't just do it the once, kind of came back and did it again. So kind of getting through that and finding my way through that has also kind of led me to this moment of, people can be going through real things where there are these limitations on what they can do, and it's how can they still live their dream and their life full of meaning despite all of this stuff, which some of it may not be movable, that may be there, but how can you find a way through that to still live your life, really?
I love your intro, and I love your intro because I was just thinking yesterday, and I did a little video yesterday on how actually people just living and finding their way through stuff is extraordinary, actually, because life isn't easy. And yeah, people don't give themselves enough credit, and people don't, I don't know, they just don't think it's extraordinary, as you say, and they don't think, oh, that might help somebody else because, oh, that's just me, I'm just trying to survive. Well, no, actually, it's really great, it's really important, and it's really kind of important as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's those, I think it's the honesty as well that comes from those conversations. I think people crave that connection and that honesty, and tell me yours and I'll tell you mine, and let's just connect. And it is those moments that stay with you years and years later. Everyone can have such an important contribution to play just through being honest.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's so important. And also just I love what you're saying about what you've done and who you interviewed, because I really think that it's so important for people to literally just give them space to be seen and heard for who they are. And I think that's what's so special about, kind of the stuff that you've done and what you're doing and what you're going to do, and being able to hold that space for people. So I think that's really awesome that this is happening.
Yeah, I think that was particularly my experience within end-of-life care, because so many of those conversations are kind of closed, like family and friends really trying to be supportive can be like, no, don't be silly, you're going to get better, we're going to find a way through this. But actually people need to have that space to say, but if that doesn't happen, this is what I want to happen at the end of my life, and this is what's important, and this is where I want to be, and this is who I want to have around me. And once those conversations are had, then you can kind of get back to the living, almost like, right, now I know this is all right, I know you know what I want, now let's enjoy the time I've got, and this is where I want to, or how I want to enjoy the moments that I have left. And yeah, that was really, because you could see the burden being lifted from people. They'd just feel so much lighter once they'd been able to say what they wanted at that time.
Yeah, it comes back to that honesty as well, doesn't it? It's really funny you say that, because I've already written mine down, right? and my husband knows where to find it. This is what I want. Because I mean, end of life care and death is quite an important topic to me, and I just figure that, you know, there's never any harm in the planning, no matter what stage of life you're in.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about how much time and thought goes into a birth plan and how we will share that with our friends and family, but death is something that, oh no, you don't want to talk about that because you've got to stay positive, but you can be positive talking about your death.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay, so tell us more about your journey, your journey to wellness and resilience.
Yeah, so I'd already had the real privilege of being part of people's lives when they're going through just extraordinary things, and seeing how people had overcome life-changing events and real kind of negative events that they had overcome, and they had somehow taken ownership of that and made it into a positive experience for them and an empowering one for them and others. And then through being ill a couple of times, like I had chronic fatigue syndrome, and I've had it twice. So, but the positive way to spin that is I've recovered from it twice. And having that, which that doesn't have a clear way out. There's no medical test for it. There's no doctor that can say, right, this is what you've got, this is your level, this is what you need to do to get better, here are your treatment options. You kind of get the diagnosis and then you just fall off a cliff because there's nothing that the NHS can really do for you. And a lot of the treatments are quite controversial, and there's lots of personal research involved in deciding what you want to do. So that for me was the time when I chose my own wellness plan. Kind of bit by bit, we're putting the pieces together of what was going to be helpful for me. And I didn't really realise I was doing it at the time, because you're just getting through each day or each moment. It's not even a day, actually. It's the moment you are in, getting help or doing whatever you need to get through that and then moving on. And it's kind of when you get to the end, you go, oh, that was my strategy. That's what I did. But when you're in it, it is just, what do I need to get through this the best way I can?
Yeah. So what are those kind of controversial treatments? Do you know? Can you share?
Yeah, so there's graded exercise therapy. But the way I look at that is, if your system is broken, like for me, I imagined it as everything was working so hard, you know, liver, kidney, digestive system, immune system, everything's going full pelt, but there's nothing coming out. You know, I am so exhausted. I can't lift a cup of tea. You know, I can't stand in the shower. I can't get dressed. I can't lift my hands above my head to wash my hair. So I'm at that level of exhaustion. So when someone's like, oh, graded exercise therapy, do a bit more each day, I'm just like, no. It's just not. It sounds logical, like, right, we need to start building up your fitness, but you've got to fix the system first. And then when you're well at rest, that's when you can start gradually building. But I think you have to get to that point where you feel well at rest first. For me, that wasn't the way to go. But again, that's kind of what makes the illness so controversial, because there might well be people listening to this that are like, actually, that really worked for me. It's such a personal illness and a personal journey out of it, which, you know, can be very confusing to navigate when you're feeling so poorly.
Yeah. So how long did each time last for you?
So the first time was a couple of years. That was when I was a teenager. So that was secondary school that really hit. So that was really hard going through that, being a teenager. Yeah. And then the second time was in my early 30s. And that was for about 5 years. So probably about 8 years in total. So yeah, long time. But that's, I think, what's driven me to be like, you have to live your life and find a way to enjoy your life despite this, you know, real horrible thing that you're in, because life just doesn't pause and go, oh no, it's all right, I'll catch up with you when you're better. because that's still 8 years where I want to be getting something positive out at that time and enjoying that as best I can, despite the real practical limitations on me.
Because I mean, obviously the physical symptoms of that, as you've described, are kind of really debilitating. There's not much that you can do. But the mental side of that as well must be almost or as equally or even more actually debilitating if you are kind of feeling stuck. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I think that's the thing with chronic fatigue syndrome, is you've got the actual illness itself. And there were so many different symptoms with that. Even the light would hurt my eyes. You know, I couldn't concentrate for long enough to listen to an audiobook even. You know, it's really, really debilitating. So you've got those symptoms, but then there are so many extra layers of suffering upon that, which are the more mental suffering around that. So you've got that feeling of, am I being believed? Because the medical profession doesn't really know what it is. They can't even prove you've got it. You kind of get the diagnosis because everything else gets ruled out. So once you've spent all the time going around all the departments and the kind of physical health go, no, we don't want you. There's nothing wrong with you, as in nothing on the test. And then all the mental departments go, no, there's nothing wrong with you. So once everything gets ruled out, you're then left with, oh, it's chronic fatigue syndrome. Good luck and goodbye. Right. So you've got this level of, God, is it real? You know, if it's not showing up in a test, is that real? So you really doubt yourself. There's all these mind games of, am I on some level doing this for attention? Did I want out of the situation I'm in? And then your body's reminding you every day that, no, this is very real. And yeah, there's that shame as well, because you've got something that is so misunderstood, and because it doesn't fall neatly into either category, I think that's somehow harder. I think if somebody could say, yes, it is a mental health issue, or yes, it is a physical health issue, you could then deal with it. But when it just slips through the cracks and nobody's really sure, and there's all these different ideas and theories out there, but that adds to it. And then that, like, why can't I just snap out of it? Because a lot of people confuse it with tiredness. So that idea of like, well, I get tired sometimes and I just, keep going or push myself through it, or, and you're like, no, it's not that type of tiredness.
Yeah. So with all that kind of the mental challenges of that, because shame is a strong thing to feel, isn't it? And also that feeling that, yeah, you're not believed. I guess it's very much that kind of invisible illness where people kind of look at you and think, well, there's nothing wrong with you. And so I can imagine that coping with that is really hard. How did you manage those two things, the shame and the do people believe me kind of imposter type thoughts?
I think it was really just about surrounding myself with people that did believe me, really. I think it was, my friends that had, because I think that's the thing, it is invisible. And because I'm quite a positive person, so I'd only really see people on my good days. So there is that, you kind of feed into that, oh, maybe it's not real, because people because I want to be smiley on my good days. I don't want to be talking about how ill I am. I know how ill I am. Let's not relive that. Let's be in this moment now. But it kind of feeds into that, is it real type thing, because you can't see it. But I think what helped me was being around people on my good and my bad days. So they just knew, there was that understanding. They could kind of just see it in me, and being around people that were so patient and flexible with what we had planned. If we were meant to be going out and they come round and it's like, no, it's not going to happen, I'd go back to sleep and they'd cook me dinner, being able to just change the plan. So yeah, I think it's about surrounding yourself with people that do believe you, so that in those moments when you don't believe yourself, they're there.
It's so important, isn't it, having those people around that can be just be there. I mean, I think sometimes it's just people, they don't even necessarily have to do anything, they just have to be there and understand, which I think is, again, it goes back to earlier when we were saying people just sometimes need to be seen and heard to make them feel a little bit better.
And it's so hard as well for other people to sit with somebody that's in that real moment of difficulty, to be present when you can't fix the problem. That actually, like, on the other side of it, I know how difficult that is for people to do, just to sit with somebody that's in pain and not have the answers. So that's the real challenge for them as well.
So earlier you were talking about being able to kind of stay positive throughout some really difficult challenges. Did you find that you were able to do that through your time of being ill?
Yeah, you had. So one of the things I did was I got a pet rabbit, a house rabbit.
Oh, cool.
And that was, I mean, he was a real lifesaver, to be honest, because people knew straight away that they could talk about something with me that wasn't, how are you? They didn't always have to be talking about, how are you doing? How's Bud? He was called Bud. What's he been up to? What's he done? So there was this conversation that had nothing to do with my health. And every day, you know, I could be feeling absolutely rotten, but I had to get up and feed him. And I could just, when that was done, just lay and look at him, run around and play with his toys. That was my joy. And I'm quite a creative person. And I set him up with his own Twitter account, and he had like 1,500 followers at one point. And it was just something completely silly to do. But if I had the energy to take a photo, the concentration to put a little tweet together and to publish it, that was my way of doing something just fun that wasn't just consumed in this bubble of, I must get well. You know, it was a break from that. So that was one of the ways I found joy, was getting a pet. Completely took me out of myself. And then other things were listening to nature sounds. So when I was really poorly, I couldn't actually cope with an audiobook. But nature sounds, thunderstorms, rain, listening to that. Or I had a DVD of fire, like a fireplace. And I had a beach one as well, because again, I couldn't follow a TV program or a film. I didn't have the concentration for that. But I could lay and look at the fire crackling. And with, you know, Bud hopping around, you can find joy in that. And another thing I do is I really wanted to stay connected to life. So my friends, I would ask them, you know, when you go out, I want to know about it. I want you to send me those photos of you in the outfit going, which dress do I wear? The blue one or the red one? Like, which shoes? I want to be part of your life. Don't not tell me things. So that was a way for me to connect. And that really helped.
That's really interesting, isn't it? Because you hear of some people who are perhaps no longer able to go out, and then those connections just slowly kind of dissipate, and they're no longer invited out because they're just going to say no because they can't go out. And you hear about that kind of story all the time. So I love what you've said about still being involved. But was it hard to see at times though, or were you just so full of connection and joy and love for those people that was cool?
Yeah, no, it wasn't. I don't think they'd have done it unless I'd have asked. And I had to keep being like, right, you're at New Year's Eve, I want photos of this, you know, like you're at this really posh hotel in Dubai, I am there with you, so you need to be sending me updates, you know. So I had to keep I guess re-giving them permission to involve me in their life, you know, because from their point of view, I guess it's like, oh, is this a good thing to do? Like, she's really poorly and I'm like, hi, this is me with a glass of Prosecco. But yeah, I wanted to stay connected because illness is so isolating. It's so isolating, and you lose everything. When you lose the ability to move your body how you want to be able to move it, when you can't think how you want to be able to think, when you can't even process language and what's being said to you and work out what to say back, to lose that connection with your friends as well just would suddenly mean I had nothing. So I had to keep hold of those things.
That's really important, and it is a really good outlook, and it's nice that you would be able to identify those things that were still able to bring joy and positivity. Can I just ask about, because it's an illness that you don't know when it might come to an end, and sometimes not knowing when something ends can be really difficult. Like, how did you cope with that?
I think in a way I had to loosen my grip on wanting to get better. I think it's so easy to try too hard to get well, you know, and put too much into it. And I almost had to be okay with not being okay, and just to be like, this is the life I've got. This is the cards that I've been dealt. Let's play them the best way I can. So I had to take that pressure off. But it was really hard, because some people don't get better. Some people it takes decades, you know, so you are with something that no one really understands and you might never recover from. So it's really hard to kind of, but I think it was when I loosened my grip on I must get better, when I just softened that, and it was like, right, what can we do in this moment? That I kind of released myself from it a little bit.
Yeah, it's interesting how that works, isn't it? Like that kind of acceptance of just gonna be, and just focus on the now, and also the process, not necessarily like the outcome that may or may not come. Yeah. Okay, so all right, so we've spoken about kind of the positivity and joy that you would seep into everyday life, and we've talked a little bit about the kinds of graded exercise. Can you say a little bit about the strategies and tips that you actually did put into practice, and what kind of worked for you?
So I think one of the things that really helped is I saw a counsellor every 2 weeks, and it was just an hour where I had that kind of space held for me to actually feel whatever I was feeling, because I'm always quite a positive person. I needed that time where I could actually say, you know what, this is, you know, a bit crap. This is not fun. And it took me a long while to even be able to say that, because at the beginning you're so full of, but everyone suffers, and there's all these illnesses, and, you know, there's all these people experiencing all of this, which is an awful lot worse than what I'm going through. And I've got family and a home, and it takes you a really long time to even get to that point where you can say, this is not good. So I think seeing that counsellor every week and having that time carved out where I could just actually sit in a room and be like, no, this, you know, and just also be able to offload and not feel more guilty, because there is a guilt in when you're ill for that long and family and friends are caring for you on that level and really changing their life to help you. You don't really want to burden them more with your worries about never getting better. So I think having that time really, really helped me. And I think also choosing complementary therapies that I felt were helping and made me feel like I was taking action. So I saw an acupuncturist, a nutritionist. I did Perrin technique, which is about the lymphatic drainage system, and it's a theory about chronic fatigue comes from when the toxins aren't being drained from your body in the right way, so your spine and everything is basically just sitting in them. And I also did the lightning process as well, which is about the mind-body connection and just getting in a state, the best state you can really for the task at hand, because those worries can be a real drain on your energy. Even those unconscious thoughts, you don't even realize you're having them, but they're just tick, 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 tick back. So so I think by taking action and by choosing things that I felt were right for me, that helped as well, because I always felt I was making steps forward.
I've never heard of a couple of those things. So how did you come about all these different strategies that might be able to help you?
How did I come about them? I think a lot of it is word of mouth. People will tell their friends about how they know someone who's not very well, and then someone else will say, oh, my friend, her daughter got through it like this type thing. So I think a lot of it is word of mouth. Some things will get some press coverage, and you'll see it in a newspaper or something, on forums. They kind of come into your life somehow.
Yeah,
actually, I think. And I didn't try them all at once, it was trying one and then bringing another one in and then another one. All of what I've just said, that's over like 5 years. So it wasn't all together. And
do you have any thoughts of what it was that was most helpful to get you feeling better and making you well again?
I feel that everything helped a bit. The pairing technique and really looking at nutrition and cutting down on carbs and sugar. I mean, God, my diet was so restrictive, but I do think it did really help. And the acupuncture, I could really notice a difference a couple of days later. It just felt like I'd kind of been rebooted. But I think the thing that got me over the line was the lightning process, which really surprised me, because I kind of misinterpreted it as mind over matter and pushing through. So I delayed doing it for so long because I was like, no, I'm a really positive person. Like, how can the lightning process be the thing for me? Because I'm there. But it's not, it's really subtly different. It's about how you use language, the thoughts in your head, kind of how you turn those around. And just, if you think about it on a kind of different level, if you've got an exam and you're nervous, you feel that in your stomach, you have butterflies or your stomach ache, or you might have a headache or something. Now, you haven't told your body to give yourself a headache. You haven't said, I want stomach ache, but it's there because of this mind-body connection. And I think for me, by doing a worry of, am I going to have the energy for that? I'm putting my body in that kind of stress response. So you've got the adrenaline going through, your body's already like to deal with it, but it doesn't need to. And actually, if it relaxed, the digestive system can work, your immune system can work, everything can heal. But when it's on that constant, I need to get better, why aren't I getting better now? You can't heal with that. So for me, the lightning process got me over that line. But everyone is different. And I think you do the therapies that feel right for you at any one time.
So is that something that you practice yourself, or does that need a practitioner to help with that process?
So at the time I did it, there was a 3-day course. So you find a practitioner to do it. And then there's a refresher course that you can do. And it's something you can do afterwards as well. Once you know the skills and it's been taught to you, it's something that you can use for anything. You can use for performance, you can use for a job interview. I need to be in this state for my job interview. I need to be feeling really clear and calm, or I want to feel free, like a bird flying over, the cliffs, and I want to take that freedom into this situation. And so it can be used for absolutely anything. It is a skill that is really useful, and I still use it now. I'll be like, oh, this isn't the right state for me, like this is the task I've got at hand and I'm not in that right state, so let's do this process so I can do that to the best I can, really.
So are there any techniques that you can share from that, or is it not something that you can explain or give an example of?
I think it is definitely better that people contact a practitioner. It's one of those things. It is a 3-day course, and I think there's an order in how you learn things.
Okay.
But it is a lot about self-coaching. And again, that, let's get that positive voice going. The mind needs no help at all to remember negative things, negative thoughts, worries, negative made up futures, to blow past events up. There's no help it needs for that. But the positive things, let's just spend some time thinking about those and see how much lighter the body feels as well, when you're thinking of those types of thoughts. So that is perhaps something that isn't necessarily the lightning process, but it's part of that same kind of theory, if you like, of what would be a helpful thing for me to think about right now? What would make me feel a little bit better? And just training the mind.
I mean, it sounds really good. If you can kind of turn that critic off in your head and then get into a different headspace, I think anything that can make that work, I say is a good thing. So you say that you still use that now. Are there any other kind of strategies or techniques that you use to kind of maintain your wellness?
Yeah, so I still pay attention to what I eat.
Okay.
I still try and limit my carbs and eat lots of veg, and I do try, and I notice that if I've been on holiday or for whatever reason that's kind of slipped, I do kind of feel that. But I think that's the same for everyone, to be honest. I think when that starts to slip, and I think something that I've come across probably only in the last 6 months that's really grounding for me is gardening, getting out in the garden. For me, that's almost like meditation, because thoughts will come and go and I'm still weeding, I'm being brought back to nature all the time. And every time I'm perhaps caught up, something will happen. Like this morning I was weeding and a robin flew around my head and then went up in the tree above me and was just looking down at me, and it just connects you back to nature. So for me, it's like if I'm doing a worry, that's like an example of lightning process language, actually, where you kind of take ownership of what you're on some level choosing to do, so so I use that phrase even now. It's like I'm doing a worry, I'll go in the garden because there I can do peace, I can change that. So that's something I do.
That's a really good example, because there's so much research now about actually getting out into nature for your well-being, and I think it's kind of vital to do that. Do you kind of try and get out as much as you can, or I don't know, how does it feel? So if you've experienced severe fatigue, such difficult times, do you now feel like when you're well, okay, I need to make the most of it, I've got to go out as much as I can, because there was a period of time where I couldn't do that?
Yeah, I don't actually. It's weird. I kind of am really content with the quieter life, like pottering about in my garden, going for a walk after work. We've got some lovely fields around us, and if we time it right, we can see the sunset. But no, I think I'm more about being gentle and baking, and which is a surprise because you would expect it to be the other way, like, right, okay, I've, you could be like, God, I've lost 8 years, let's pack the next. But I think there's just something about me now that's just a bit quieter, and I think there's more meaning from those quieter connections somehow. Yeah.
And I could totally understand that, because you come across to me like you've just got this sense of contentedness, and that's how your wellness is, and that's how you spread joy, and that's how you support others, by this contented kind of strength and quiet growth that you've been going through.
Yeah, I feel so lucky. I have my life back. It's weird when the first lockdown happened and people were really struggling. But for me, I had my health. I had my house, I was at home, yes, but I could move, I could shower, I could get dressed, I could cook.
Yeah.
You know, there were so many things, and I think I never stopped feeling that.
That's so nice, because you are a very positive person, and you've got like a really strong perspective on your mindset and what's going to bring you that kind of happiness and that positivity, which I think is great. So tell us about what you do in your coaching and how you bring everything that you've learned and all your experience and your mindset into promoting wellness in others.
So I'm training to be a coach. So I'm very much at the beginning of my journey, but my idea is to bring that kind of positivity into the coaching space. So often I think people can get caught up in their problem and also a negative thought loop, and it's just exhausting. And I think before we look at that, which is really important to unpick and look at any beliefs that might be holding us back, before we do that, let's just take a moment to reflect on something this week that has made you feel positive, whether it's joy, whether it's a time you felt really confident, whether you felt free, whether you felt really proud of yourself. You know, let's feel that. How does it feel in your body? You know, tell me about that, because we don't take those moments to actually think, God, I'm really proud of myself for that. Or that moment was really special because I was really present with this person and we had that connection. And I think when we give ourselves time to reflect on that and hold that, we then have more power to look at the problem, but with a kind of new energy or a new focus. And we can find creative ways through it. And then also I try and, at the end of my sessions, kind of plant the seed of what moment do you want to be putting in your kind of happy tin, whether it's a place in your mind, whether it's online, whether it's a book, you know, this idea of the happy tin, what kind of moment do you want to be putting in there next week? So that then that seed is planted, and on some kind of unconscious level, their brain is looking out for it. And it just, it's really interesting actually how so often somebody's next steps or an idea they've had is somehow related to what I call their happy tin moment. Somehow it comes back. Because at the beginning of the session, it can feel a bit like, oh, this is a bit weird because actually I've come in with this and you're like doing this. But by the end of the session, it's like, oh, actually, this gets me another happy tin moment, which is just the kind of positivity that I need in my life right now, while also kind of just chipping away at this and moving this forward. So yeah, it's about bringing the two together.
Okay, because you're coaching, kind of what your business will be is called Happy Tin Coaching. That's right.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit more then, because we got a glimpse of what happy tin moments are, but tell us a little bit more about happy tin and how it came to fruition and what it really means to have a happy tin.
So for me, it's almost back to that gratitude journal I used to do when I was really poorly, you know, that idea of where are the good things today, you know. And I've always kept a happy tin, and it's got things in it. It might be photographs, it might be a pebble from the beach that reminds me of who I was with on that day and perhaps a conversation we had. It's perhaps a newspaper article. It's just a real collection of things. I've got an old watch up there that has a special meaning to me, and it's just a place where you can remember the good stuff, you know. And it doesn't have to be a physical tin. It can be almost like a top drawer of memories in your mind. Like, what is in this drawer? What have I got that brings me joy? So the kind of idea for Happy Tin coaching kind of brought that into the coaching space, and just using the two together, because I think there's a real energy you get from remembering those moments. You feel it in your body, and when you're in the right state, when you're feeling lighter, more connected, like I say, you've then got somehow more power to look at something that might be holding you back, but have the power to overcome it.
Yeah, awesome. So when will you be qualified? When will people be able to come to you for coaching and any other service that you're going to provide?
Well, they can come to me now because I'm training. So at the moment, I'm doing my practice hours. Okay. So I'm actually looking for clients to commit for 4 coaching sessions free of charge, to be taken between now and October. So they can come and join me now and see if this helps them. So yeah, anytime from now, really. And I kind of do a taster session first, because I think the thing with coaching is can be a little bit confusing to get your head around what it is. I think a lot of people think it's about being given advice or told what to do, and it's not at all. It is just about me asking questions and listening to your answers, and you hearing them back. That's a big thing. I think, to think, oh yeah, actually people can make the connections themselves. So I do a taster session first, so people can kind of experiment with it to see if it's something that could help them and see if it feels right for them at this time. And then after that, they can decide whether, I'd like to give this a go.
And what kind of coaching do you do? What can people come to you with?
So absolutely anything, really. It's for people that feel stuck, and they want to live a meaningful life, despite they might have some real challenges, but it's about unlocking those so that people can feel free and still live a life that's meaningful for them. But it's really anything. I do have interest in working with people that have illnesses, disability, but really anything where you're like, this is an area of my life that I know can be better, but I just need a bit of help to see it differently and achieve it.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, right. I've really loved talking to you, and I've got one last question for you, which is, tell us either a value, a strength, or personality trait that is really strong within you that you use to promote and maintain your wellness.
I think it probably comes back to positivity and connection. I think just by focusing on that, really. I mean, I do tap dancing, which is all about being positive and free with your body and connecting with others. And a lot of the things I kind of do in my day-to-day life are, things that bring me joy and connect with others. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what we all need for our well-being, really.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think connection and meaning, those two things which you're talking about, is almost kind of, for me, like the key actually to enjoying life and getting what you want out of life, I think.
Yeah, I think people need to feel purposeful, that they have something to give, and I think when you're on that road to reaching your potential, when you're on the right track, that brings you happiness and joy, just being on that path. It's not necessarily the end destination, but just knowing that, believing in yourself, that you have something to give is really important, and having people around you that believe in that too.
And also, I'll just say, because I think it's really important, and I think it's probably what you deliver for people as well, like coaching and having that coach. To have a coach is someone to have that belief in you as well, isn't it? Like, as a coach is kind of, you do believe in that person and you are kind of like rooting for them, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. You're a team, Yeah. That person's in the driving seat, you're just in the passenger seat, but you are a team. And it's a really safe space, and it's so special as well to be in a space where you know you are valued and you know you are being listened to, and nobody's listening to you but thinking about what they want to say next. You know, that happens so often in conversations. You can see people are actually working out their next sentence.
Yeah.
So to be in that space where you're just present with somebody, that can be freeing in itself.
Absolutely. Awesome. I really appreciate you coming to talk today, Claire. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Brianne.